When I was a young man, growing up in New York City, I refused to pledge allegiance to the flag. Of course, I was sent to the principal's office, and he asked me, "Why don't you want to pledge allegiance? Everybody does." I said, "Everybody once believed the earth was flat, but that doesn't make it so." I explained that America owed everything it has to other cultures and other nations, and that I would rather pledge allegiance to the earth and everyone on it. Needless to say, it wasn't long before I left school entirely, and I set up a lab in my bedroom. There I began to learn about science and nature. I realized then that the universe is governed by laws, and that the human being, along with society itself, was not exempt from these laws. Then came the crash of 1929, which began what we now call the Great Depression. I found it difficult to understand why millions were out of work, homeless, starving, while all the factories were sitting there. The resources were unchanged. It was then that I realized that the rules of the economic game were inherently invalid. Shortly after came World War II, where various nations took turns systematically destroying each other. I later calculated that all the destruction and wasted resources spent on that war could have easily provided for every human need on the planet. Since that time, I have watched humanity set the stage for its own extinction. I have watched as the precious finite resources are perpetually wasted and destroyed in the name of profit and free markets. I have watched the social values of society be reduced into a base artificiality of materialism and mindless consumption. And I have watched as the monetary powers control the political structure of supposedly free societies. I'm 94 years old now, and I'm afraid my disposition is the same as it was 75 years ago. This shit's got to go.
My name is Peter Joseph. I am currently the de facto founder of an organization called the Zeitgeist Movement, which is seeking to alter the current cultural climate, if you will, into something that could be considered actually sustainable for not just one nation or class, but all the world's people. We live in a paradigm now where we have society operating on the idea that we can grow infinitely. Therefore, we keep buying and consuming regardless of how many resources we have. This creates a collision course with nature, which the world is figuring out right about now on many levels, that the Earth is essentially a closed system. It took billions of years to create the minerals we have. It took many, many hundreds of millions of years to create the fossil fuels which govern everything we have. And amazingly enough, we've created this system where we're using all of our resources to create the economic growth required to sustain employment and everything else. And simultaneously, we're diminishing our resources at a near exponential rate, it seems, as population continues to grow. And no one seems to understand that it's an absolute clash, and that eventually we're going to run out of pivotal resources, and eventually you're going to see things, I don't know, like the human population start to dwindle down.
My name is John Fresco, and I'm going to present the concept of the Venus Project. If you don't want war, if you don't want poverty, hunger, unemployment, you have to declare all the Earth's resources as the common heritage of all the world's people. All the artificial boundaries have to be removed so that people can travel anywhere. It has to be a global society. There are many people that feel, well, let's develop each country. You can't do that because if the Russians do experiments with nuclear materials and the Chinese, that air goes all over the world. So it's very hard to work independently. So I would say, if you want these things, you have to change the way your society operates. We believe here at the Venus Project, we are not civilized yet. As long as you have armies, navies, prisons, police, we are not civilized. No nation is civilized. Being civilized is an ongoing process. The more we learn, the more we know about the environment and human relations, the more we're able to deal with the problems. If we fail to do that, we won't be able to solve problems. If we go with traditional values, we won't be able to solve problems. All of these pump primers do not work. There's always been wars. The wars have continued to get worse, even though the universities today have the most sophisticated equipment in the science labs, the architectural labs, all the labs, and the wars are getting worse. The explosives are getting worse. Since the atom bomb, the explosive power is much worse. So there's something definitely wrong with all cultures. When I say wrong, I mean that the system doesn't work. Now, to talk about a system that does work is a little foreign to our habits of thought, so I'm going to try to explain how we make decisions. Actually, we don't make decisions, we arrive at them.
The only way a real society can operate, period, is in a steady state economy, meaning you don't have the mechanism of constantly needing to do anything other than being sustainable in your everyday living and having society recognize the attributes of sustainability which are required. That's the value system orientation needed to create a stable society. As a brief extension of this, we live in a materialistic culture. We live in a culture that's predicated on inferiority and people thinking that they need more and more and more because of many reasons, because of someone else having more, status-oriented issues, so on and so forth. And that fuels into this mechanism of the growth economy, of getting more and more holidays, people give each other gifts. These are inventions for economics.
As long as we use money and the bottom line is profit, then those who control the money are able to make the laws in their favor. And that means that they really don't care about people. They care about wealth, property, and power when that is the main incentive. So when we use a monetary system, there is no justice within this system. There's no making this system equitable. What we need is an entirely new system that we call a resource-based economy.
In regard to social operation and how to create a new society, or better yet, just to say to create any society that would be sustainable and efficient, there's really an empirical train of thought, if you will, of how to do that. First of all, you have to think about what the human being actually needs. We require resources at the bare minimum. We require food, water, etc., as we all know. Therefore, resources become the most paramount subject. Resources, in fact, should be the foundation of any economic structure. So what do? If you consider that the Earth is a closed, finite system?
First thing you have to do is do a survey of the Earth's resources and the carrying capacity of the environment. If you produce a population far in excess of the carrying capacity of the environment, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have malnutrition and all the problems that go with it. So first we have to find out what can each successive environment carry and maintain a population in accordance with the carrying capacity of the earth, not what I like or somebody else likes or some politician's notions. It has to be based upon the carrying capacity of the earth.
To organize a structure based on the intelligent management of the Earth's resources, you start from essentially the base level of where is everything. So you look at the planet, you say, okay, we see we have iron ore here, we have petroleum deposits here, if we were using petroleum at that point in time. In the future, hopefully we will not be because it's damaging. We have places for great wind energy here. You get the point. We can assess the entire environment of what we currently use based on our technological facilities at that point, and we start to create a structure of analysis, maintenance, and management, and basically monitor and understand what we have.
Then we can design the parameters for the new society. Without a survey, we couldn't do that. Survey means physical disabilities, all the known diseases. That tells us how many hospitals we have to build. Of course, the survey would include available materials. Otherwise, if you just sit down, turn out a hospital or turn out a social plan, not based on what you have, not based on what Fresco believes, only statistical evidence. The end of what's your opinion should have been gone in 1927.
Then you move to the next level. How do we utilize the resources in the most efficient way? Technology is the methodology to harness any type of resources we have. Technology is the growing intellectual field that allows us to know how to manipulate our environment for our betterment and to be more sustainable, hopefully. So what we do is we utilize our technical information, and then we analyze the planetary resources. Then we build from the ground up an entire infrastructure, not based on the whims of any type of ideology, capitalist, socialist, fascist, whatever, what have you, communist. You do it based explicitly on the most efficient means to do it with the most peak efficiency possible based on the technology available at the time, the intellectual resource of the time. You have peak efficiency and sustainability as your goal. You just simply weigh all parameters when you analyze anything, and then you're going to build a society that is essentially, for lack of a better expression, perfect. It's not perfect at all because things are going to constantly change, but it's the best you can do at that point in time, which I think would be a variance of perfection.
What the Venus Project proposes is that we bring all the nations together and take care of everything on Earth. We pledge allegiance to the environment and all the world's people. The end of separate nations, the end of the artificial boundaries that separate people, and the sharing of all the world's resources by all the world's people. If few nations control most of the Earth's resources, you're going to have territorial disputes. You're going to have war. You're going to have all the problems you've always had. That's why most people think it's human nature. They think man is basically greedy, and that this is why you have problems. That is not true. A banker, a serial killer, and a gangster, and a priest are made by environment. It's not human behavior, it's the environment we come from which generates behavior. We are victims of culture, all of us. That's why we have a distorted view. We believe that some people are good, some are bad, some are creative, some are less creative. All that's bunk. Everyone can be creative. Now they tell you in your schools that plants grow. That's a lie. They need water, sunshine, soil, moisture, gravity, all those things. Without them, the plant doesn't move. There is nothing in the earth today that is not acted upon by resident forces. And your language was designed hundreds of years ago. That's why we can't talk to each other. We talk at one another, not to one another. A lawyer is a guy that takes language, twists it around any way he wants to. If he's skilled at it, he can knock you out, put you in jail. A lawyer would be considered a criminal in the future. So would all bankers, and all businessmen, and all politicians. Don't forget, you're brought up to believe that King Solomon was a great guy. He had 1,000 wives. He'd be arrested today as a bigamist. So all the things that you're taught, they teach you to fit in with this culture. There's no such thing as thinking things over. You think within the context of the way you were brought up. So it's very hard for so-called normal people to step outside of the environment. Now, in the early days in the Roman Empire, I am told that they used to feed Christians to lions. Now, the family would come Saturday and Sunday to see Christians being fed to lions. And the kids would say, "Daddy, can we come next week to see Christians being fed to lions?" Daddy would say, "If you behave yourself." Are these kids sick? No. They're normal to that culture. There are no good or bad people. There are no corrupt people or dishonest people, creative people, lazy people. All that's bunk. If you're raised in a society that understands human behavior, you don't have those variations. You can block them through education. You must design for human comfort, and you must design cities with art centers, music centers, cultural centers. I can only talk a little bit about America because that's where I'm from. I don't like our country. It's completely corrupt. And that's for most civilizations today. They're all corrupt. I'm sorry to say that. I don't like what I'm saying. I wish it were otherwise. We are brought up in a system called established. Established means it serves the interest of the lead group, the control group. What we really need is an emergent society. There are no great men, no great women. All people are creative, but they're not brought up to know what that means. So when they tell you that your government likes you, they're working for you, all that's bunk. When I say people hardly know what they're talking about, because they're not brought up to be sane. They're brought up to fit in with the establishment. National loyalty is really a form of stupidity. All people need clean air, clean water, arable land, and a relevant education. That means no businessmen, no advertising, no investment bankers. I used to work for Ernst Udet, and I said, "How did you shoot down 70 airplanes?" And he said to me, "I would fly above aerial combat and watch the rookies that couldn't handle planes well and knock them off." Now, what kind of a person is that? He's a war hero, great man. They're bums and stupid people brought up by an arrogant society that doesn't give a shit about anyone else but the established institutions. Man, this includes me, cannot think or reason. When your car veers to the right, you don't kick it and beat it up. Either your tire pressure's uneven or something's wrong with the steering column. You try to understand. When children beat up other people and hurt other people like a bully, that's part of their conditioning, their associative memory, the system they live under, which doesn't correct that. Schools do not teach you much, are mostly concerned with propaganda. Most schools don't teach you how to live, find meaning in your own life, how to disagree without getting angry. What is really needed is the intelligent management of the Earth's resources for the benefit of everyone. Now, the only way you can do that is through technology. Everything that you have, your lights, your air conditioning, your automobile, your airplanes, all technology. Politicians can't give you that. Politicians don't know what to do. They make laws. Say no to drugs. Well, that's not going to stop a person from selling drugs as long as there's money in it. But if you do away with the money system and build access centers where anyone can have access to the necessities of life without filling out 1 million forms or appealing to Fresco, It's all available to everyone. Go to your big department stores or your food stores, you'll see lots of stuff. We are now capable of producing in abundance. People say to me, I know two people from the same environment. One turned out to be a priest, the other a gangster. If environment is everything, how do you get those differences? You get those differences by playing with the youngest child, 4 years old, while the 7-year-old stiff. That's where jealousy comes from. It comes from poor manipulation of the variables. If you grade children in school, you hurt the other kids. I got an A, what did you get? F, failure. You know, all of us, by the way, are prostitutes in this system. If you sing and you sell toothpaste, you're a prostitute. If you get up and you say, I got just the house you're looking for, you're a prostitute for the establishment. So there's no good or bad people now. We're perfect reflections of the culture we live in. Again, I'm sorry about that. How can you pray to a God? How can you talk to God? They think, due to ego problems, that they're specially selected. The Jews are God's chosen people. The Germans are the master race. You know, all these little egocentric people think that they're put here to lead the world into a better direction. Galileo found seashells on the mountaintop. He took it to the Catholic Church, and he said, maybe the mountain was once under the water and was pushed up. And the church said, no, the devil put that stuff there to confuse you. So the world you live in is as full of shit as a Christmas turkey. And you're not about to talk to people and turn them around. You have to demonstrate it. So I don't say science is perfect, but it's closer to our problems than any other system. People really don't know what to do, so they put up a sign, thou shalt not steal, don't be dishonest. That doesn't change people. All money systems, as they begin to collapse and change, they move toward fascism. It's part of the history of civilization to move in that direction. The wealthy people try to protect what they have. I went to the South Seas when I was 21. Everybody on the island was nude, except when men climbed trees. They wore kind of a jockstrap to prevent their balls from being caught in the branches. So everybody walked around nude. And the interesting thing about it is I never saw a native stare at a girl's body, only her eyes. When you talk to a woman, you never say, hey, get a load of that chick. That's what you get in civilization. You cover the girl. If people swam nude when they were this high, you couldn't sell pictures of a nude girl. Do you understand that? I get to know the natives so well, I watch them make love. And they stroke the whole female, the top of her head all the way down. They had no fetishes. There were no tit men, leg men, ass men. All that's made by culture. And if you don't use that kind of language around women, you can't become equal to one another. So you have to tell them how men think. That isn't how they think. That's how they're brought up. When guys poke each other, hey, get a load of that chick, you know. That is learned in the culture. In the islands, they never did that. It's like you stroking a dog. You stroke the whole dog. You don't stop at the balls. You stroke the whole dog. Understand? I'm not your enemy. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to tell you that if we use science and technology, everyone will be given the best opportunity so that we can bring out the best in every human being.